And welcome. My name is Ed Pearson. I'm the Senior Enterprise Officer for Global Banking School. And this week, for our Wednesday workshop series, I've decided to pick a topic that has been requested a lot. I've been out at the time of recording recently to a lot of campuses. We've got 9 campuses currently across the UK. And at some point during my conversations and presentations with students, the question of sales always comes up. And it's a bit of a hot topic. I'll go into a lot more detail on a future date, but need to get some foundations in there. So if you own a business, if you're struggling to come by sales and you think it's part of the actual sales process itself as opposed to the marketing, then you're in the right place. But regardless, just settle in, sit down for 20, 30 minutes, have a listen to what we're about to cover. It will be of immense value for you because nothing happens without a sale in business. So let's settle in and have a look at the next few slides. So I've just got myself out of the way there so you can just focus in on the slides. Don't worry, I've just disappeared from you. But what we're going to cover today, all with an introduction to sales. I want to have a look at the mindset first of all. There's a big barrier in there that we've got to sort of, discuss and get you into the right place first of all. I'm going to give you a simple sales structure that I've used for real. I've been in sales for a long, long time before I moved into my current role. So I will share what I used to do. We'll also have a look at some ideas on areas to focus your scripting and what to say and when. And also, I'm going to give you some hints on things that need to be in your sales process in terms of the words and things you'll use. So by the time we finish, we'll have covered off mindset. You'll have a simple sales structure. You'll have an idea on what areas to focus your sales around. And then finally, even what to say. So if anything in there, when we get to the end, you think it doesn't quite work for you, we'll need a one-to-one session. You can still do that. But this really is an introduction and a strong foundation that will give us a great place to start to fix sales within your business. So I just want to ask a quick question, really. Where does the ability to sell rank in your business? Okay, so when I speak to business owners and say, what do you do for a living? Quite often they go, I own a business. I'm the managing director. I'm the CEO. They describe themselves in various places. But where would I rank sales in business? I think it is the number one skill. I always start building businesses with my marketing, but then very quickly I've got to sell something. Without sales, nothing happens. Zip, nada, nothing happens without a sale in your company. So where do I think it ranks in business? It's right up there. And in fact, as you build business and you start to think around about who you're going to employ and what roles to sort of pass on and delegate and really get your business rocking and rolling so you can start to get some proper serious growth and scale in there. A lot of people will often try and outsource their sales immediately, but actually I'd encourage you to get better at sales and even to make sales the last thing that you get rid of. It is that important, and you want a lot of control over it on the early days until you really understand your business at a very deep level. So that might have filled you with some fear. It's really normal, quite common that people get a bit scared about sales. So I just want to have a look at that for a while and ask the question, if you felt a little bit of fear when I said you need to start selling something, I want you to have a think really about what is potentially holding you back. And as mentioned, I want to get around the mindset of sales. And there's a lot of positives to sales. But when I ask people, even salespeople that have come to work for me, how do you view sales? What are salespeople like? The sort of responses I get are things like, well, they're just after the money, aren't they? And it's gift of the gab. You're born with it, apparently. And salespeople are con people. They're just trying to get you to buy stuff for commission. And it's always the one that's brash, flash, splashing the cash, pulls up in the brand new car. Salespeople, there's just there's like a funny mindset around salespeople. Whereas I view the positive actually. I try and sit down and work out whether or not we've got a solution that's going to help you with your problems. So I see it more of as a service to people. As a result, that helps me immensely just get into the mindset of thinking, well, I want to go and speak to everybody and have a chat about, no, I don't want to speak to everybody. No, I want to speak to my target audience, but I want to go and speak to them about the problems that they have. And I want to go and find out if the solution I've got available is a perfect fit for them and make sure we can do business from there. But I just want you to have a look at the screen first of all, see if you recognize any of these phrases that are on the screen, but also just spend a moment thinking about what you honestly think about sales. I used to have an issue around this, and mine stemmed from childhood. And I realized that we used to sit at home when I was very, very young, many, many years ago, and the phone would go late at night, and it would be, I don't know, the double glazing salesperson on the end of the phone trying to sell windows to us while we're all trying to sit down and have a bit of dinner or a bit of tea at night. And my parents used to sit there and go, oh, just tell them I'm busy. And when the phone went down, oh, phew, that's better. Like, got them off the phone. And I grew up for a long while thinking it was acceptable to not speak to salespeople. It was almost like a badge of honor that we managed to get them off the phone. And that really didn't help me with my mindset. So if that resonates, fantastic. We've got an idea potentially of what any future problems may be around sales in terms of mindset, but you really need to understand what's going on with your mindset around sales. Let's have a quick look at some other things just to jog the thinking around mindset very quickly. So here's some questions I want you to think about. And it's not just for sales, this is for life in general. Watch out for assumptions or perceptions that you've got about yourself and how the world works. Mine was, as I've just pointed out, around double glazing salespeople ringing up in the evenings, and the goal was to get them off the phone without them speaking to my parents. So start to think about your assumptions and perceptions. Remember that your brain's autopilot is aiming to keep you safe. So it tends towards the negative, the what if scenarios. So if you've got any fears of knocking on a door or starting a conversation or picking up a telephone to speak to somebody, and you can feel that bit of fear kicking in, well, the good news is it's your brain on autopilot. It's keeping you safe. But in practical terms, that's not very helpful. So just start to work out what your brain's really thinking about there, what the what if scenario is, what's the worst case scenario your brain's trying to protect you from. And then ask yourself, well, what's the likelihood that's really going to happen if you've got a fantastic product or service that's going to help somebody? And the third thing to have a think about, we often end up over analyzing the uncontrollables, things that we have no control of, and we allow it to become part of our belief system, and it's a limiting belief quite often. So some beliefs obviously will help you, and others, they're not so helpful. So what are you over analyzing, and that will manifest itself really in sales in terms of, well, when I go in there, they're going to tell me this, or this is going to happen. And you're sitting there and panicking over every what if scenario, when in fact, you might have somebody who's actually waiting for the product or service that you've got to offer. Now, just to help you really understand if mindset is an issue and how it sort of manifests, mind reading is one of the classic ones within sales. I hear this is all comments I've heard, or maybe even said myself. Mind reading, I could tell they weren't going to buy when I met them. That is a classic mind reading one that I hear over and over again. Overgeneralizations, that will give you a clue that there's some problems in there, making judgments based off one-off incidents. So people saying things like, they seem preoccupied, so they weren't going to buy. People with posh accents never buy from me. People from the town over the way, they never buy from me. That's a classic mindset issue. Egocentric thinking, assuming others have behaviors and values just like you. So I used to have a manager that didn't really like me. I famously don't often polish my shoes, and I don't polish them for good reason. It's because I got told to do that while I was at school. So I get comments from my manager saying things like, They hadn't even polished their shoes and they were late to the meeting. So for one of my early managers, he used to moan at me all the time that I hadn't polished my shoes. And if heaven forbid I was as a minute late to a meeting, crikey, he would absolutely tear a strip off me. But I recognized that was a problem in his own mindset because it never stopped me from selling. And the other one is the must, should, have, need, putting pressure and judgment on yourself through self-talk. So I would quite often have salespeople in there doing things like, I must get this sale. I've got this target. I must hit it right now. And that can be helpful. But if it's a pressure statement, if it's starting the adrenals going off in your system, the fear starts to creep in, and you start to do that constantly and live under this almost like this globe, this self-contained environment where pressure is just every day within sales. It just becomes a problem. Sales should just be natural. You should just be working out if people have a problem and you've got something to solve it, and whether there's a fit for each other. I mean, it's as simple as that. It doesn't have to be more pressure than that. So if you understand some of the mindset then, and if that is a problem, let's have a chat. Let's go and talk that through. We can overcome mindset sometimes with simply having a structure that actually just stands the test of time for your sales. So you can be successful even with a negative mindset if you're just very good at following process. Now, whether mindset is a problem or not, you should actually have a sales structure anyway, because you're going to use that to go and test out new ways to sell. So just because we're going to come up with a fantastic sales script and a bit of a process to go through, you should have something you can refer back to that might help you go and increase sales. So let's just give a quick analogy here. Let's say you're doing £1 million in revenue in a year, for argument's sake. If you can just increase your sales by 2 or 3% in a year, you can imagine how that might have a massive knock-on effect to your lifestyle as the business owner, to the success of the business, especially if that 2% is compounding out over, say, 20 years. 2% at 10 years isn't 20%. It's more like nearly doubling the business. So really, these small percentage changes add up to a heck of a lot. And you can only do that really if there's a structure that you're working with, somewhere you can refer back to that shows you clues on where you might be able to improve. So get a sales structure, first of all. And that will help you. Even if you're struggling a little bit on mindset, it will carry you through while we work on everything else. So what is a sales structure? I'm going to just share one that I love and use a lot, really. It's a simple but powerful structure. It's called Spin Selling. There's a book out there by a guy called Neil Rackham. I've read that book. It's a tough read. I'm going to be honest with you. I love Neil Rackham. I love what he's done. I don't love his book. I've read it, and it's a tough read, but you do need to read it, get into it. It's a fantastic book to have a read of. Far better to maybe do a bit of digging around on YouTube, though. There's lots of people explaining spin selling, and it's a structure that I love because it's so simple. SPIN is an acronym, as you can see on the screen. It stands for situation, problem, implication, and the need or the payoff. So what we're looking to do, I'm just going to go back a slide. First of all, we need to understand the client situation, right? Why are we there? Or what's happening in their world? Let's just get an idea of where everything's sitting within the view of their own world. And then very quickly, what I want to do in the sales process is I want to work out if there is a problem. Okay. Businesses do very well when there's problems to be solved. It speeds the whole process up for a sale to happen, and it makes businesses very profitable. And entrepreneurs spend their life looking for problems and ways to resolve them. So you want to work out where they are, first of all, what their problem is. Now, salespeople are salespeople, so typically most of them, when they find out there is a problem, they immediately start to sell. It sounds reasonable, doesn't it? I'm here as a salesperson, and you've just told me there's a problem, and I know how to fix it. I'm just going to dive straight on in there and go, hey, this is fantastic. Our XYZ product resolves that problem. Let me tell you what the numbers are, how much it costs, and we'll see if you want to go and do some business with us. The problem is we don't have a customer potentially that's emotionally involved. Like, they're not sort of invested in that problem at the moment. They may have had other things going on through the day. You might have interrupted them. Quite often we do in sales, we interrupt when people are busy. And let's face it, everybody's busy these days. So you're always going to interrupt while people are busy. All you got to do is understand their situation, identify the problem. Now we need them to understand the implication of their problem. And quite often they don't. So I'm going to give you a little bit of structure in a minute that's going to pull out some of this information. But the classic one I had was just a year ago from the time of filming. I was managing actually 3 sales teams on behalf of 3 individual different clients. I was in the sales meeting with one of my clients, and the salesperson said something like, yeah, I could have sold them, and in this case, they were selling parts to them. We don't need to get into too much detail, but I said, yeah, I'd identified a part that I could sell to them, but everything else was sorted out for them. That part, it was only going to save them like £500 a month. And I sort of looked at them for a moment, and it was still £500 a month. I said, yeah, but as a one-off, like, it's not really massive in terms of their revenues and how big they are. And I recognized some of the conversation going on. I said, did the customer tell you this? And he said, yeah, the customer, they told me that, it's not such a major problem. They're not really interested in buying from us. And I said, well, this is interesting. I said, how long have they been buying? This customer was buying bits and pieces, but nothing substantial. And they've been buying from the company almost from inception. It'd been almost a dozen years they've been in business. So there's a good decade or so of buying history. And I sat back, I went, okay, so it's £500 a month. We can roughly assume that's been going on for a decade. And the sales team were looking at me a little bit blankly to start with. And I said, well, £500 a month is £6,000. And they were like, yeah. I said, that's £6,000 every year for 10 years. And the penny was starting to drop. I said, unless they make a change now, they're going to lose £60,000 just on one product every 10 years. And because we don't understand some of their other problems yet, because we're new to them almost, because they don't really know who we are, I bet we can uncover half a dozen products like that. And as they were looking at me a bit more intently, I said, that's over £250,000 in 10 years. Do you think the customer has a problem now? So you can start to see now how you understand the situation, understand the problem. We can start to now build up that implication. And suddenly, if you're starting to talk in terms of £250,000 over 10 years, there's a massive payoff for the client. We've generated this need, and this is how Spin works. So here's the structure we're going to use is Spin. And what I want to do next is just take you into some types of questioning, really, that you can start to now put into this structure to start to understand the client situation, to start understanding a problem, to start asking about implication, and to start generating a need in your client. Because if we follow this route down and just ask questions, then all of a sudden the customer's ready to buy. There's a famous saying, I think it's Dan Kennedy. If it's not him, it's Jeffrey Gitomer. So it's one of them because I follow them closely. And I really like their work. But the saying goes, everybody likes to buy, but nobody likes being sold. Now, I just put the word "to" on there because it's a very Americanism term, but everybody likes to buy, but nobody likes being sold to. And this Spin process really helps people buy from you so they don't feel like they're being sold to. It just asks questions to get everything working properly. So you get a better relationship, you get rapport. People actually don't mind being sold to if it's done correctly. Let's go and have a look in a bit more detail at what I'm talking about. So the first thing, or the overarching thing that we really need to understand, the thing that makes Spin tick, is we're going to need a few BGQs. And you're sitting there thinking, crikey, that's a TLA, a 3-letter acronym. What's a BGQ, Ed? This is what I picked this up from somewhere and I don't know where. I might have even come up with it myself. So if anybody knows, tell me where they found it. But a BGQ is a bloody good question. And what we really need is we need to get better at questions. And the better question we get, everything in life gets easier. I think it's Warren Berger that asks in his book around how to ask a better question or something like that. So it's a good book. I haven't read it for a while, but you get better asking good questions, the world comes to meet you. So get really, really good at asking questions, whether you're in sales or owning a business. Outside of sales, you just need to get better at questioning anyway. Life just gets easier when you do it. But we're talking about sales today. Really get to handle around better questions. Now, you might sit there nodding along, go, well, that makes sense. Better questions, better outcomes. I want to get into some of the detail to try and give you a chance to start building your own script off the back of this video. So let's have a look at some of the areas to focus on. Let's have a look at some of the questions that might start to help you use spin structure, use a bit of sales process, get to the point where sales now becomes easier for your business. So some potential areas to focus on and some of the questions to ask. The first one, what is your potential customer trying to achieve? Okay, so we're very much around the situation area in spin here. What I've done is I've asked 2 questions. The top question that you can see on the video in front of you, and the first one I come to, is a business-to-business question. And then what I've also tried to do is I've tried to get some business-to-consumer questions going. And in the business-to-consumer, I've used a restaurant. I know quite a lot of our students are in the food industry and selling to consumers. So I've just tried to make it as relevant as I possibly can. You may need to do a little bit of homework, a bit of thinking, a bit of lateral thinking to make this work for your business. So first things first, some potential areas to focus your blooming good questions on to go and get your script working. The first one, what's your customer trying to achieve? In a business world, that might look like a question, which is, what are your top 3 goals right now? And business people typically are happy to share and happy to, tell you what their future looks like. If you're let's imagine somebody's coming to your restaurant, you might just sort of say, hey, you after a lunch or a light brunch, depending on what time of day they're walking in. I've obviously just gone for the 11:30 in the morning type of conversation. So first area, what are they trying to achieve? Now, you can start to think about, in spin world, we'll talk about the problem next. So the next area to focus on, what are the areas of frustration? So I've come up with a business-to-business type question. HR managers tell me the new national insurance payment is problematic. Same for you? And if I'm a restaurant owner, I might be looking at my customers who've just walked in and going, you look like you wanted something not on the menu. What's your favorite brunch? So I've assumed they're coming asking for brunch. And we're going to now just entice some areas of frustration out of the people in front of us. If you lead with an inquiring mind and just ask them, these questions on the screen should work quite well. I tend to do something around negative questioning, but we might have to do that in a bit more detail in a one-to-one. So if that intrigues you, I'll tell you how to get hold of me in just a moment. Now we're going to have a look at implication. So we've already found out what's frustrating them. Now we need to get them to understand what the true implications are. Now I've asked a question around, what's the cost of doing nothing? The reason I've gone there, first of all, it's a bit of a strange one, isn't it? What's the cost of doing nothing? Well, hang on, I've got a fantastic product or service here. What do you mean if they do nothing? They're going to do something, aren't they? But actually, most sales are lost due to people just staying as they are and doing nothing moving forward. So we do need something in there, ideally, that overcomes the biggest problem in sales. What's the cost of doing nothing? So again, B2B, that would look like something like, what costs have you considered that are currently impacting this problem? And for the restaurant, I've put, it's a long time until dinner this evening, no? And you'll notice I've gone to the negative there and beautifully on the restaurant one. So I quite like that as a question. Always go to the negative. There's a hint in there. If you're not sure what I'm talking about, arrange a one-to-one. But first things first, what costs have you considered are currently impacting this problem? Let's have a look at business to business. You might have a HR manager sitting in front of you going, well, there aren't any costs involved. In which case now, that's give us an area as a salesperson to do more of a customer service type follow-up and just allow them to understand that there's always a cost to doing nothing. Depending on your products and service, you need to think long and hard around what the true costs are and start to build that up in terms of people's minds. Even with the restaurant owner here, it's a long time until dinner this evening, no? But what you're actually saying is, well, what is the problem? So what we're suggesting there is they might feel hungry. They might go, oh, I should be all right. And then you might look at your watch. What, you're going to wait 5 hours to eat? Even if you're eating early, that's a long time with no food. Aren't you going to feel hungry? So you're starting to let them understand the implication. This is the sales structure, but it's a very natural customer service led structure now. I hope you can start to feel as we go through these questions. And we're starting to build up now that real need in them. They need to do something. Still within sort of implication area, really, and potentially within need now, what options do they have available to them? So what have you done to resolve this problem or this NI that we've talked about, this national insurance issue that we talked about earlier? That may give us some insight into whether they understand there is a major problem, whether they've done anything. And also for the restaurant owner, where else were you thinking of going to eat? Just in case they're looking at maybe other restaurants in the local area and they're actually thinking about walking off with their feet to go and do something else. So we're just exploring now really what options are available to them, but we're trying to work out where they are in this spin process. Can we look at some of the implications if they're going to walk away? What, you're going to walk for half an hour to the other restaurants? You'll be starving by the time you get there. Let's just have a look at what we can do for you here. For the HR manager, what have you done to resolve this? Well, we tried a few things in-house, might actually start to highlight where our product or service will fit really, really well for them. So this is all valuable information. And a great one here, what would demonstrate value? So what we're doing here is we're letting them just sit in the problem, the implication. They're starting to now think around their own needs and how our offering might suit them. So what would demonstrate value? So B2B, what solution would get your director's positive attention? Is a great question in B2B, assuming you're not already speaking to the directors, obviously. But quite often in larger companies, if you're selling a product or service, there'll be senior managers who have got massive influence and sway and potential to buy the product off you. But you need to still understand how to demonstrate value so that they've got their need is satisfied or they understand the payoff they're about to get. And then within the business to consumer, the restaurant, I've got, how about I make something within your budget? What do you fancy today? Right, which is huge value. Have you ever been into a restaurant where they've offered to cook something up right there and then based on the ingredients in their fridge? I mean, if somebody does that for you, how can you really realistically go and eat somewhere else? So immediately you've satisfied the need and there's a huge payoff. Somebody's actually going to cook for you and they're going to cook something specifically to your order that's not on the menu. How fantastic would that be? Now, can you see how all this is building into sales for you? And now I just want them to future project a little bit as well to really push home this need and payoff. What are the benefits moving forward? And I might be sitting there going, look, if we get this right, how will this impact your business? And get them to now start taking ownership of the product or service that you're offering. So they'll start to say things like, well, your new software system will really help with the national insurance payments that we have to organize. And that would free up 2 hours of my working week. And with that time, I could use that to go and study another course at Global Banking School or whatever the impact is or what the benefit is for them going forward. For the consumer, would something tasty that gets you through to your next meal work for you right now? What a great line that would be. Because, like, if I'm hungry, especially if I'm hungry, and I've just worked out the nearest restaurant's half an hour away, remember? And I've got somebody offering to cook me something specific on the menu, and they ask me that line, I'm so close to just buying something from them now. So you can hopefully start to see how some of these questions become really powerful and hopefully how simple the questions are. So if you're not fully comfortable with sales just yet, perhaps you could look at those questions and really see what a great benefit they are to the people you're speaking to. And that will give you some confidence to go and try some different sales tactics. So let's assume you are at the position now where you're looking at, because that sort of, those questions will help you with that structure of spin. And you can start to fulfill your own sales script now that's unique to you. And that's great intellectual property within your business, by the way. You're starting to think, well, actually, I'll come up with something now on my own and go and make that work. So I just want to give you another like heads up, really, just a little bit of a signpost to let you know how to create your script. So there's a great saying, people buy on emotions and they justify with logic. Okay, I've had that just happen this very week while I'm recording. My wife went off shopping the other day, and she came back with some placemats for the table. And we've already got placemats for the table, but she's bought some new ones, and they looked fantastic. But she walked in, she said, I bought some new placemats because Lou, which is her sister, was coming to visit. So it's quite an emotive buying decision, that is. And then she unwrapped them and put them on the table. And I'd already shrugged and gone, yeah, that sounds fantastic. And I was about to walk off. She went, look at this. Look how the color scheme works with the kitchen. Right now, what was really interesting about that whole interaction was she'd bought the placemats just on a whim. So it's an emotive buying decision. And then when she wanted to tell me about it, she explains in logic why she bought the new placemats. And it's a very subtle thing, but as you start to know this, you'll start to notice that people actually will start buying emotionally. But when they come to tell you about the purchase, they'll start talking about the logic. Cars are the other area this happens a lot in. You know, people will sit there and they'll go, I just love the color. Right. And the color of a car when you buy it is typically a very emotional decision. And then if I'm talking to some of my friends about their cars, they'll start telling me it goes 0 to 60 in, I don't know, like 6.5 seconds or whatever figure they want to tell me about. Or, hey, I could get from here in London and I could get to Berlin on a tank of petrol. And that's them justifying on logic now why they've made this purchase. So keep an eye out for this because it's really quite an interesting exercise. It doesn't help you necessarily, but it just reinforces the fact that people buy emotionally. They don't buy for logical reasons. Now, and the fact that you know that now, how do you get people to be more emotive with you about their buying decision? Because remember, it's not sales, it's people buying from you. Well, really, to get people to buy from you, you need to sprinkle emotive language into your scripting to make it more powerful. That will do a massive job for you to help. So, what sort of language do you need to put into your script to make it better or more useful to go and make some sales? So, I've just listed a few words in here that will help. And here's the words that you want to use that actually invoke an emotional response. So words like discover, unlock, free, hand curated. That's one I hear a lot in this world of academia I sit in. We've got a hand curated proposition for you, is what I've heard 2 or 3 times just in the last few months. Customized, only, quickest, new, premium, all are emotive words to put into your scripting just to let you into, it's not a secret, but what is it? It's like an understood thing within sales. I quite often use the words look when I'm speaking normally, casually, in my conversation. And I've probably said it in this video already and I haven't realized. But if I want you to buy from me, I don't use the word look quite often. I use the word feel. So if I'm selling, let's imagine I'm selling a car for a minute, because we've already mentioned cars, and I go, look at the color on that, because I'm trying to gauge whether or not it's the color is the emotive buying decision. I'd be more better served is probably a better way to say. I'd be better served by saying that color on the car. How does that feel? And just asking that question to get people to get into their feelings allows them to access their emotions. And remember, people are buying on emotion. They'll justify their sale after their purchase afterwards on logic, and need to get them emotively involved. So the word I often use in scripting, certainly towards the end, when I'm starting to do early questions, it's all things like, let's go and discover what's going on. Let's have a look together. When I want to get them to the point when they start to purchase, because I've identified that I've got a solution for them. And hear what I said there. I've used words like look at this, let's go and have let's unlock, let's discover early days. When I've worked out there is a good fit for what I've got on offer, that's the point, that's the only point I start to sell, because that helps integrity in my sales, and you can have integrity in your sales too. And at that point, then I swap my language to more feeling language, and using the word feel in there, maybe linked in with some of these emotive words, to get people to attach to the emotion they're feeling and to get the sale over the line. And that, I think, is far enough for an introduction to sales, because what we've covered there actually is quite a lot. We've had a look at the mindset around sales. There's a simple structure that you can use and use it very, very quickly for your sales process. I've given you some ideas on some areas to focus, and beyond that, what to say so that you can start to build a script up. And I've also given you a hint there at the end on how to say things and how to get some words into your scripting that are really going to help your sales move forward. So we've covered the basics really of sales there, a structure and a way on what to say, and also just uncovered whether there's need for a further conversation around where your head is at in terms of sales. And if we can just get those simple things right, and assuming that you've not had any sales training already, I think we're already starting to move you forward, which is great for a 20, 30-minute video or however long we've just been speaking this morning. I think that's a fantastic place to start. Now, there's still every possibility that you might need some more help, advice, or support, in which case you can speak to me. I'm Ed. I'm in the Enterprise Hub based in Norfolk House in Birmingham, or you can email me to go and have a one-to-one, and you can get to me via email at enterprise@globalbanking.ac.uk, and we can start to have a look individually at your scripting. It would be fantastic if you're coming to those meetings having tried a script. And let's be realistic, if you're not in the habit of writing sales scripts, then it probably won't be the best. But I can guarantee if you've based it on the principles that I've just talked about in the last 20, 30 minutes, it definitely will not be the worst. In fact, I think you're actually going to have quite a decent script to work with already if you follow the clues in this video. If you feel like you want to hone it more, or you want to try it on a dry run with me and just bounce a few ideas around that, then there's my contact details, and I hope to hear from you in due course. But for today, I think that will be enough to go and let you really get your teeth into sales. It's a great introduction. So I think I'll stop there today. Thanks for tuning in. Keep tuning into Wednesday workshop series. There's lots going on that will help grow your business. If you want a one-to-one, I'll speak to you soon. In the meantime, happy selling.